Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and with so many people running around with the ever-popular carbine in Titanfall, I wanted to stray away from the beaten path a little bit and showcase a weapon that I find to be extremely rewarding and skillful, and that is the G2A4 Rifle. This weapon is extremely fun to use. It's not as easy as the carbine or all the other weapons in the game because it is single-fire mode, and there are some strengths and weaknesses that you're going to have to work around. But if you're able to master this weapon, it is an absolute blast in Titanfall. And so the first thing that we need to understand before we can jump into what makes this weapon tick is that pilots in this game have 200 health. I know this is a little different from a lot of other first-person shooters out there, and if you're coming from Battlefield, they normally have 100, but for Titanfall, for whatever reason, Respawn gave them 200 health. And what makes this important is that the G2A4 does 99 damage per shot within 25 meters and then drops off to 66 damage a shot at long range or at 40 meters. And what makes this so amazing is that the G2A4 is extremely consistent. As long as you get 4 bullets in your enemy at all ranges, you have the peace of mind that they're going to drop 100% of the time. Like, it is simply fantastic. And honestly, there aren't a lot of weapons in Titanfall that have that type of consistency. Like 3 to 4 bullets at all ranges, you know that your target is going to drop. And then on top of that, because it does have such a high initial damage, like 99 damage per shot up close is a little overkill, but it's simply amazing for assisting your allies or your teammates that are trying to take someone out. So let's say, for example, your teammate takes a couple pot shots at a target that just rounded the corner in front of you. Because they have a little damage done to them, probably a little bit more than just 2 damage, that means it's only going to require 2 to 1 bullets for you to drop that player that just rounded the corner. That is extremely powerful, and while I wouldn't normally recommend trying to get up close and personal with this weapon, it's mainly meant for medium to long range type of combat. If you do come into those combat scenarios where your ally just did a couple of damage, because of its high initial 99 damage per shot, you are going to drop your targets extremely quickly. One downside of the G2A4 though is that it doesn't have a whole lot of rounds in its magazine. You only start out with 14, and while you can bump that up to 18 with extended mags, that is going to put you at a disadvantage. And while 14 doesn't sound all that bad because this is single fire, and technically if you are very accurate with all of your shots, that will allow you to take out multiple targets. But let's be honest, this game is extremely fast paced. Pilots are flying all over the place, and trying to hit a moving target, especially if they're flying through the air or bouncing around on all the buildings, isn't very easy. And so there was a lot of situations where I would go through basically all of my rounds, all of those 14 rounds, trying to take out a pilot. I would eventually kill them, but then at the last second, of course, another pilot rounds the corner, and then I'm left with only a couple rounds left in my magazine. And while the reload speed on this, I would say, is on the fast to medium end of the spectrum for all of the other weapons in the game, its short reload time is going to take you 2.2 seconds to go through the entire animation, or if you still had a bullet in the chamber, and its long reload time is going to take you 2.64 seconds. Like, that's not bad, but because this game, once again, is so fast-paced, you're probably not going to last that 2.2 seconds to go through the animation, and so you're probably going to have to switch on over to your pistol to take them out. And if you're using your pistol and you're going against someone who is using a primary weapon, you're going to be at a substantial disadvantage. Another thing you're going to have to look out for is that it does have a low rounds per minute. It has a rounds per minute of 420, and while that's not awful, and it's basically just solidifying its role as a medium-range weapon, if you get up close and personal and someone uses an SMG or the popular carbine, which has an RPM of 810, you are going to be at a disadvantage. Like, you're going to have to make sure that all of your shots are counting, because if you miss one shot and you're going against someone who is using a higher RPM weapon, they're going to have a lot more room for air compared to you, and you're probably not going to come out of that engagement alive. You do have the potential to slap on the attachment that will increase your RPM to basically as fast as you can press the button, but in my opinion, this is probably one of the worst attachments that you can use for the G2A4. Sure, it will basically make you amazing at killing people up close and personal, but the downside is that it will reduce your magazine size from 14 down to, I believe, 11 or 10. That is not a lot of rounds to dispose of your target, and so while you will have the RPM and the damage to basically kill anyone up close and personal, if you're not accurate, or if you have to take out more than one target, you're not going to have the magazine size to do so. And so while I guess for some certain maps this could be useful, in my opinion, that's just not how you should use the G2A4. Like, this is a long to medium range weapon, and while for maybe some people they can make it work, I found it to be one of the more useless attachments in the game. And so when I'm using the G2A4, hopefully it is very apparent that when I'm moving around the map, I'm going to try to position myself in a way where when I come in conflict with someone, they're going to be at a medium to long range distance from me. This means I'm going to be on top of buildings. I'm going to position myself in between objectives if I'm playing on hardpoint, so when anyone moves from one objective to the other, they're going to be out in the open and I have a nice line of sight on them. I'm probably going to avoid the inside of buildings as often as I can, and while you can still do well up close, don't get me wrong, you get a flank off on your target, you get a couple of headshots in there, they're going to drop like a rock, and they're probably not going to have a whole lot of time to react. But if it's a fair firefight, they see you, you see them, you start the engagement at the same time, and they're using an SMG or a carbine, and you're inside of a building, you're going to really have to struggle. You're going to have to be the skillful player in there, and you're going to outperform them and outskill them to win that firefight. And so, at least for me, I was having a lot of success on game modes such as Capture the Flag and Hardpoint. Because these are very team-oriented and objective-oriented game modes, it makes it very easy for you to understand where the action and where your enemies are going to be coming from. Like if you're playing Capture the Flag, they're basically going to be heading from their deployment. And because of that, you can then use that knowledge to your advantage to put yourself in these situations where you are going to have advantage over your enemy. If you're playing on something like Attrition, it's a little bit more random. People are flying all over the place, and while it's still going to be the case on Hardpoint and Capture the Flag, I feel like it's a little less so. You have a general idea of where they are and where the action is, and I just felt like on those game modes, I had a lot more success with the G2A2. But as we're actually customizing this bad boy, there are honestly only a couple of options at your disposal. For the optics, it's basically going to come down to personal preference. I personally love the iron sights on this. They're very unique. The iron sights are basically at the front of the barrel, which is very different from a lot of other first-person shooters. And so while it may take some adjustment and take some getting used to, I personally find them to be very unique and just amazing when I'm using it. You can use the higher optics like the AOG or the hollow sight, and because this is a long-range weapon, hopefully I've drilled that into your brain by now, they're perfect for this. They're going to give you that magnification, and it's going to allow you to see those targets at a distance and make sure you're getting those pinpoint shots. You can try using the suppressor, but in my opinion, it's not all that useful for this weapon. If you want to stay off the minimap, you want to play that silent assassin role, then I would give it a try. But I wasn't having a whole lot of luck with that attachment, and what I was mainly just sticking with was extended mags. It bumps it up from 14 up to 18, and as I said, you don't really have a whole lot of rounds to begin with, and that 4 extra bullets technically could mean that you could take out 1 extra target. But overall, this weapon is extremely fun to use. It will require a little bit more skill on you, the player, to take out your targets because it is single fire mode. You're going to have to work around its slower rounds per minute and its low magazine size, but if you do so, you have that pinpoint-like accuracy. It is easily one of my favorite weapons in the game right now. But that is about it for my review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think so far of the G2A4. Do you love it as much as I do? Do you absolutely hate it? Let me know down below in the comment section. Until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.